Hello everyone, hope you are doing well. Welcome to my channel again. So today we will be discussing about the prop drilling and context API. So we will discuss what is prop drilling and how it is bad for our code and how we can resolve this issue with the help of context API. So before understanding anything, let's create a demo app and we will follow this flowchart to create an app. So our app will look something like this. So there will be an app component under which there will be a counter component and this counter component will render these two components. So let's create this demo app in VS Code. So this is my VS Code. I've created this context API folder under it. Let me initialize a demo React app, boilerplate React app, npm create. Package name would be same, React, and language would be JavaScript. So let me install all the dependencies. So as you can see, there are multiple file generated here, like app.css, app.jsx, index.css, main.jsx. So we will work on this app.jsx. Let me remove all this code which is pre-written here. Let me remove all this. So what I have told is, under app component we will render this counter component. So we will create this counter component under this, and let's create this counter. And under this we will return these two. The first one is counter renderer. Okay, and the second one is buttons. Okay, now I will create these two function counter renderer, which will just render the count, the value of the count variable, state variable, which I am going to declare very soon. Let's declare it now. Count set count and use state, and the initial value would be 0. Now I will create two buttons, one to increment the value and one to decrement it. Okay, so this is the button increment, and on click what I will do is I will set count to be count plus 1, and similarly I will create another button which will do the same, decrement and count minus 1. So now this now we have to pass the props, pass these count variable to its children, as app is an parent component and these are all its children. So what I will do is I will pass them as a children. How we can do is count is equal to count. Okay, or set count, I'll set it as set count, and now I can use these props here like this. Now I will pass this as here, and now I can use count here. So now the error has gone, and I need count and set count both here. Okay, I don't need a set count here. I can remove it. Okay, so now I think app is running fine. Let me run it. npm run dev. If I click on increment, it is incrementing, and if I click on decrement, it is decrementing. Okay. So now ये ऐप बिल्कुल सही काम कर रही है, मगर इसमें एक प्रॉब्लम है। जैसे कि मैं ऐप में ऐप कंपोनेंट के अंदर डिक्लेयर कर रहा हूँ काउंट और सेट काउंट, ठीक है। अब जैसे कि मैं यहाँ पे काउंटर में इसको ड्रिल कर रहा हूँ, मैंने काउंट और सेट काउंट को इस काउंटर कंपोनेंट में पास करा, मगर ये काउंट और सेट काउंट की यहाँ पर रिक्वायरमेंट नहीं है, और कंपोनेंट 3 में रिक्वायरमेंट है। मैं फ्लो डायग्राम से समझाता हूँ। जैसे कि मैंने यहाँ पे स्टेट वेरिएबल डिक्लेयर करा, मगर ये स्टेट वेरिएबल की रिक्वायरमेंट काउंटर पे नहीं है, इन दोनों में है, C3 एंड C4 में इन दोनों की रिक्वायरमेंट है। सो ये हमारे कोड को एक नॉट मैनेजेबल बनाता है, और इसकी वजह से C2 हमारा रेंडर हो रहा है हर बार, विच इज़ नॉट रिक्वायर्ड फॉर आवर कोड। ओके, सो टू overcome this problem, the context API is created, but first let us read this definition. What it's like: prop drilling is a process of passing data through multiple layer of component from a parent component down to deeply nested child components. See, I have done the same here. This is a parent component, app is in parent component. I am just passing these count and set counts to its children. First I passed it to counter, then I passed it to counter renderer and buttons. Okay. uh, this happens when a parent component needs to pass data to a child component that is several levels deep. So the data is passed through each intermediate component along the way. तो यहाँ पे क्या हो रहा है, हर चिल्ड्रन को पास हो रहा है डेटा, मगर इसको इसको उसकी ज़रूरत भी नहीं है, मगर इसके पास फिर भी आ रहा है वो डेटा। तो ये प्रॉप ड्रिलिंग का एक ड्रॉबैक है, सेटबैक है। इवन इफ दोज इंटरमीडिएट कंपोनेंट डोंट नीड टू यूज़ द डेटा देमसेल्व्स, ये मैंने बोला। अभी इस वाले काउंटर को इस वाले डेटा की ज़रूरत नहीं है, मगर फिर भी पास हो रहा है, तो ये हमारे कोड को नॉट मैनेजेबल बनाता है। अब जैसे कि ये तो हमारा छोटा सा एक एप्लीकेशन है, बट इफ़ यू क्रिएट अ लॉन्ग very big application like LinkedIn or Twitter, there would be lots of data to pass, and it would be very difficult to manage that code. So to overcome overcome that problem, to overcome this problem, context API is created. So context API in React is a way to manage state globally, allowing you to share data between components without having to pass props through every level of your component tree. So context API हमें state manage करने में help करता है without passing the data through a props. So मैं अभी बताऊंगा उसको कैसे यूज़ करते हैं. It is a great way to avoid prop drilling, especially for data that needs to be accessed by many components at different nesting levels. ठीक है, तो prop drilling कॉन्टेक्स्ट एपीआई का बहुत बढ़िया तरीका है प्रॉप ड्रिलिंग को अवॉइड करने के लिए, एंड इसको हम डायरेक्टली किसी भी वेरिएबल को डायरेक्टली एक्सेस कर सकते हैं विदाउट पासिंग द डेटा टू इट्स चिल्ड्रन. Okay, so let me just go to the code and write something. So these are some steps given to how to use this, how to use the context API. So it has mainly three parts. First, creating a context creation, and second is wrapping your app under this provider, and use this use context hook to access the value. So under this source folder, I will create this context.js file, and what I will do is I will just create an count context, and create context. Okay, and under which count would be initial value of count will be 0. So this is the way to create a context for your app. And if you come here now, second step was the wrapping your application under this context dot provider. Okay, so now I will wrap my whole application like this. Counter is under this application. I will wrap this counter context dot provider, and under this we have to pass the value which is count. Okay, and I have to import this count context as well from this context file. Okay, now I have wrapped my whole application under this count context dot provider. What you can do is there is a one main.jsx file as well. You can wrap this also. So both of them are okay, but I have a wrap here, no problem in that. So now what I can do is I can just remove this count as a prop and remove all this one. We don't require count to be passed as a prop. Okay, I'm removing count from everywhere. Okay, so now how can I access this count variable? As this application is rendering this counter, but this counter doesn't require count, so leave this. Come straight to this count render component. What I will do is I will just const count. I will use the use context hook, and under this I will pass the name of my context, count context. Okay, and I will do similarly for this buttons, and let me save it and see if my application is working fine. What I've done wrong? Set count is not defined at counter. Okay, I have not passed the set count. I have used the context for only count variable, not for the set count. Now it will work fine. Okay, I have used this double. Now it is working fine. So what I have done wrong here is I have not passed the set count. I have just created the context for only count. Okay, so I have to pass the set count as a prop. So I'm showing you both the example in the same time. One using the context for the count. I'm using the context, and for this set count, I'm using the prop drilling method. You can see both. So what I've done is, so first I've created the context, and after creating a context, I've created this count context provider and wrap my whole application under this provider. And I'm not passing the count as a prop. I've just initialize the value as count and use this count directly where it is needed. Now coming to the definition, we have already done this definition. The context API in React is a way to manage state globally. So it is a state management library, you can say. But there are many state management library in the market which are Redux and Recoil or ZooStand. Next, I will hopefully in the next video I will show you the Recoil one. And yeah, this is it for the context API. You guys can take the snapshot of this definition and this definition as well. And hopefully you guys like the explanation of this context API. See you guys in the next video. Bye bye, take care.